Welcome back to Dog Health News. I'm Roberta Chadis, and my mission is for dog owners to take better care of their dogs all over the world. And today, I'm thrilled to have Jeremy Cohen with Boston Dog Lawyers. Obviously, I got a t-shirt out of the deal, so
Sure
welcome
did.
to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. We're very excited because when I first heard the name of your company, I thought, wow, there's these heroes running around and they're taking care of all the dogs in the world. How did you get inspired to create Boston Dog Lawyers?
Well, first, we're not heroes. We're lawyers who, in my case, I always had a desire that I wanted to be a voice for the silent, but I never found an outlet for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started my own firm in 2008, I got a call from a friend who said his dog had bit somebody and there was going to be a hearing at town hall, and he couldn't make it, so I said I'd go. And I called ahead and they said nothing to worry about, nothing bad's going to happen. And when I went, I was shocked because there's 50 people there all screaming for this dog to be killed. They wanted blood in town square, and one person spoke about the dog that he was like an Al-Qaeda cell, that he would lay in wait and try to attack people. This just wasn't right, and they voted that night to put the dog down without ever evaluating the dog, without ever conducting an investigation. And I realized that night that the loudest voice was winning, and that's not right. It should be the facts that win, and that lit the fire. And we ended up winning that case because we took it on appeal. So that lit the fire to keep going and try to help others.
It's very interesting. I'm picturing the courtroom. I know the dog is not present. Is that right?
Right.
So there's all these people talking about this dog. And in this particular case, what type of a dog, what breed?
This was German Shepherd.
Yeah.
Breed is irrelevant, though. Yeah, you take it's dog by dog. It's the breed, and it's not the deed, it's the breed. And I try not to speak in terms of breeds. It's really the individual cases.
Exactly. So are there any other people in the community that are doing something similar to what you're doing?
So there's plenty of non-lawyers who are forming groups and advocating. And there is one sort of national guru who does this, Steve Wise, and he's been a mentor for me at times. But in terms of other attorneys, I haven't found any. I know some would do it here and there, but we're focused on defending dogs.
Very nice. And I'm talking about the bite doctors. I know I've seen a lot of ads out there. If your dog has bitten someone, call us. What is the difference between what you do and what they do?
So there's plenty of lawyers who will take the case to pursue somebody whose dog bit and to sue them. I take the other side, where I'm defending the dog owner to try to keep the dog alive, keep the dog with the owner. And then at times, if somebody injured our dog, then I'll try to get compensation for the dog owner. If somebody wrongfully took the dog or abused it or hurt it, or even a car accident, we put enough time and money into our dogs that if something happens to them, you should be compensated.
Yeah, definitely. So I get this sense, Jeremy, that you are a lover of dogs. And I know that you have your own dog. So maybe a little story about that feeling that you have about dogs and Maisie.
Right.
Maybe we'll tell the audience a little bit about that.
Okay, growing up, I never had a dog. When I was 7, we had a dog for about 2 days. He bit my brother's hand, and I never saw him again. So I didn't get into this as a dog lover, but from the cases that I've had, I realized the bond, how great it is to have a dog, and how these people felt about their dogs. So my wife and I, we got a golden retriever as a puppy. She's 2.5 now, and I can't imagine life without her. My little Maisie's, she's my little girl.
And is she a rescue dog, or is she...
She is not a rescue dog.
She's not a rescue dog. That's okay.
My wife and I, we don't have kids of our own, so Maisie is our little child to develop.
I can identify, believe me. So I'm curious, getting back to Boston Dog Lawyers, of the behavior of a dog that would qualify them to be accused of a crime and find their owners in court? How does that happen?
Well, it's scary because some dogs are accused of biting people or biting other dogs, and some dogs have done nothing wrong, and still a case is brought against them. And I've seen a lot where if somebody owns 4 dogs and one of them is accused of bad behavior, the animal control officer wants to take all 4 dogs away from the person and try to put them down. It's unfair, and it's because they don't do an investigation. It's, like I said, the loudest voice wins at that initial hearing. And the problem is a lot of people don't know that there's help out there, help like myself and others who can advocate for you.
So, and I'm wondering, is the ultimate end the death of the dog in many of these cases?
It hasn't
I'm
been
horrified, of course.
It hasn't been in any of my cases. And yeah, the 40 or so dogs that I've helped through this process around, mostly in Mass, but around the country, none of them have been put down. But we're prepared for that. What I tell my clients is, I'll fight till the end. You're paying me for the effort, and we usually can find more reasonable grounds, a middle ground to keep the dog with the owner and keep it alive.
Now, is there an example, without sharing names, of a particular case that you've had that might give the audience an example?
I have a great example of how it's usually not the dogs, it's the dog owners. And if the owners could pay a little bit more attention, there probably wouldn't even be a need for me. In one case out in Western Mass, the person who owned this dog had a bad arm, a bad left arm. He was unable to use it effectively, and he was going to open his garage door. He had a bundle of groceries in one hand and a leash on his other hand, and as he's trying to open the garage door, the dog got free. So then the dog behaved like a dog. He became territorial, and there was a person passing on the sidewalk, and he bit that person. And the town voted to kill that dog. 2 years later, after going to trial, that dog's still alive, but it's because he was with the wrong owner, and we rehomed that dog. So sometimes we keep the dog alive, but the owner may have to realize he or she's not the right owner for that dog. But here, clearly this person was not the right owner for this type of dog. It wasn't the dog's fault.
Interesting. That's very interesting. And what I'm also hearing through your descriptions of the stories is that you sound like you want to do other things to help prevent these situations.
Right. If we can it's all about education and simple things that dog owners can do, which is obey the leash law. When you're entering a car and exiting a car with your dog, a lot of us might feel casual about it. It's a short walk from the house to the car, and that's when a lot of these cases happen, where you don't leash your dog, and when you're leaving the car and the dog gets loose and ends up biting somebody. It's paying attention to those small times where it just takes a brief second for a mistake to happen.
It really does. And dogs do respond to the freedom sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're looking around, they're anxious to do something, to find a squirrel or
because they behave like dogs, and we can't be putting dogs down for behaving like dogs.
That's very, very true. That's very true. Now, another question pops up is, and we have the dog in the situation, and what about the owners? Are they ever sued? So
one problem today, at least in our state, is that dog owners are not held responsible. There's not strong enough laws against dog owners when things like this happen, so they end up trying to take it out on the dog and punish the dog by voting to put it down. The dog owner can always be sued, and so there's always a chance for compensation for the victim. So financially they can be punished, but too often the victim, they want to just see the dog disappear.
And how do we stop that? Is there some training that can be done?
Training should be going on for the entire life of the dog, and it's the owners that have to do the training too with their dogs. And it's education. Half of all incidents, and the median age for dog bites is 12 of the victim. So so much could be prevented if we could educate children on how to interact with dogs. And if we could get programs into schools where we show a video, we give a brief discussion, even 30 minutes a year during the school year, if we can teach kids how to interact with dogs, we could stem a lot of the issues. And then it's parents and dog owners making sure that their dogs aren't unsupervised when they're around children. That's another key thing. If you can supervise your dogs with children under 12, you cut a lot of these incidents out.
I bet you do. The next question I want to ask is, I'm picturing myself in the courtroom with you, and I'm thinking, who are those opponents? Who are the people that you're up against?
Sometimes they're loud, angry people because they want to see something happen to the dog. And for the most part, it's boards of selectmen or mayors or police chiefs, people who make the decision to put the dog down. And in some cases, they don't necessarily say put it down, but they want certain restrictions. They want a dangerousness label put on the dog, or to deem the dog vicious. And we want to prevent that where we can, because once you're labeled something, the next bite could be, the consequences will be even more disastrous. It will be to put the dog down, but then it's a little bit more difficult fight. But primarily, it's these animal control officers who initially advocate for a position for the town without doing a deep investigation, or without ever meeting the dog. That's the thing, they don't meet the dog, yet they can deem the dog dangerous, and I just can't stand for that.
So they're not really looking at the whole picture.
Right. They're looking to quell the neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that there are situations where it's pretty obvious that the dog is in trouble if the dog has caused a death or something like that.
And when in cases where the victim dies, I don't take those cases. I mean, these are, I don't want to understate the injuries to the victims.
Yeah.
Some people that we've had to deal with have been, their wounds are very bad. And we're always sorry for that. And there's always money to compensate them. So they can be sort of awarded something for that. It's just that if the dog wasn't the root cause, then why punish the dog? Take it out on the owner. But one way to take it out on the owner is not to kill his dog.
Right, right. And besides defending all of these dogs, are there other things, other committees that you're on that are helpful? There
are so many groups in the state and in the country so that you can be part of. And it helps a lot to rally people when you need the support of the local, of the neighbors who will help advocate for the dog owner. I'm a member of MassFed, Mass Federation of Responsible Dog Owners. Just this week, they have a bill in front of the state, in front of the legislator, state legislator, to stop homeowners insurers from discriminating against certain breeds. So their mission, and this could pass, is that underwriters at insurance companies won't be able to not write certain policies because you own a certain type of dog. And once we can get that, and everybody knows that there's compensation out there, I think we'll be in a better spot in terms of making sure victims get what they need.
Sure. And I'm also thinking, I'm putting myself in many different places here, but what if I, or someone in the audience, one of our viewers, knows of a situation where they know an owner and they know this dog that is at risk? What could they do? Could they connect with you? What's your suggestion?
My goal is to keep dogs alive and with their owners. So it could be a simple phone call or reaching out to us on Facebook or my website. I mean, we have 4,000 followers right now, and a lot of those people will reach out for information on how to prevent things. I have a neighbor whose dog I know is going to bite, and the key thing is making sure that he keeps the dog on a leash. And sometimes you have to muzzle your dog, and a lot of folks don't want to do that. But if it's between muzzling your dog and killing your dog, it's a good alternative. And sometimes I have to convince people of that.
But should people feel uneasy about reporting a dog situation like that, or?
Well, if they're reporting it to me, it stays with me. It's when you get the animal control officer involved, things like that, that now it's in someone else's hands. And if we can work together to prevent something, yeah, I'm all for that. I'd rather do that.
Absolutely.
I'm fine not having people come to me when their dog's in dire straits.
I don't know. I just can't imagine situations where the dogs are so much at risk in a courtroom.
We had a case up on the North Shore where two pet goats were killed, and they were found dead in their pen. And my client's dog was loose that night. And sure enough, the animal control officer said that dog had to have done it, and he recommended to the board that they put the dog down. He didn't do any investigation, and he never met the dog. When I got the case, we were able to reverse the decision because we did an investigation. Yeah, I work with behaviorists, investigators, other attorneys, trainers, and what we found out was that night there were several calls to the police that there were coyotes in the neighborhood. Also, I researched and found when you have a goat that's killed, you're supposed to do certain tests on the bite marks to see how deep they were. It's as simple as taking a matchstick and inserting it to see how deep the wounds were. The animal control officer didn't do any of that. And there was no way that this little dog had killed these goats, but he took the easiest, quickest way out to satisfy the people who own the goats. And that's why I have to get involved.
I guess so. And I'm feeling the passion in your voice, and I can see your energy. Now, is this going to be the only thing that you do, Jeremy?
Well, primarily, I mean, I do other work, civil litigation, but this has always been something. Each year, the need becomes more and more where I've realized I need to focus much more attention on it, and that's why I'm building a team, and we have lawyers and network in other states on the East Coast where people want to get involved and be involved with Boston Dog Lawyers, and this way I can take cases in other states as well.
That's great. That's really good. I'm glad to hear that there are more people doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's necessary. I really do. And what other areas of concern have we not covered? Anything come to mind?
Some owners, they want to prove that their dog is harmless, so they put the dog in situations where they shouldn't be. And ultimately, the dog will behave like a dog, and the owner doesn't have control over it any longer. And it's these risks that dog owners take that lead to problems. And we know it just takes an instant, a flash of an instant for something to happen. So avoid risky situations. I met a guy 2 days ago who said he wasn't sure if his dog was a biter or not, but now he knows and that he wanted my card. Well, how do you know? He said, well, I kept poking him in his face, and then I kept putting my hand in front of his mouth, and then finally he bit my hand. That's so preventable, and that's not somebody I even want to give my card to, because ultimately we'd want that dog to live with a different owner.
Wow, that's very interesting. I know I've even been in situations myself with dogs, and they are put in tough situations where they're out in the backyard, they can sort of sneak out and escape. And it's a dangerous opportunity.
People, when their dogs are outside, if they have the ability to have a fence, that fence should be at least 18 inches into the ground so that the dog can't dig under it. Another thing which my wife and I have learned through ongoing training is you need to expose your dog at a young age to as many scenarios as possible, because you have to trust your dog when these scenarios come up in everyday life. For instance, when she was young, we brought her to Fenway Park. We got her around crowds on the train, on an elevator, on crowded stairs, down to the ocean, as many different places as we could, and we tried to get her to interact with as many small children as we could. So now, when someone comes up to her and says, "Can my child pet your dog?" we're comfortable that Maisie will just sit there. She just puts her chin up and says, "Pet me," and her tail's wagging. So it's exposure at an early age to these different scenarios that could come up.
And I know Maisie's a golden retriever, one of the sweetest dogs around, but they can get a little hyper. And, you know, when you're with your dog is usually protecting you. So it's dangerous to just assume that a sweet dog like a golden retriever is safe. It's up to the owner
Especially,
to do that.
Again, there's 4.5 million bites a year. There's at least 70 million dogs in the country, and nearly half of these incidents happen at the home where the dog lives because they're territorial, and they do think, even Maisie could think that this is her, she needs to protect us. So that's why having a fence and having your dog leashed are simple fixes for this.
And that leads me to dog parks. I have watched all the dogs and the dog owners in situations like that. Are there any tips to use in a dog park where the dog is running around free?
Don't go.
Oh.
That's my tip right now, because if you're going to do that, you're exposing your dog to several dogs who may or may not be aggressive. You don't know. So if you're going to go, you have to relax your standards and do not get involved in a dog fight. We bring our dog to the beach, and there's other dogs at the beach, but there's also the distraction of the ocean, so she'll run into the ocean. When you bring your dog to a dog park, you're no longer interacting with your dog. You're just letting your dog go free to interact with others, and you've lost control over it. At least when your dog needs to be exercised, we need to exercise. So walk with your dog somewhere. I mean, and that's why if you can throw a ball and play with your dog, have a distraction so that it's just not always dog on dog. And I've seen the cases come out of these dog parks, and it's mostly people who interfere in a dog greeting or a dog fight, and that's when people get hurt.
So I'm thinking there are times when people are getting hurt, obviously, and there are times when dogs are getting hurt. Are there any statistics on that as to which is a higher situation?
With 4.5 million bites a year, those are bites on people. And there's a lot of bites that don't get recorded because they just didn't cause seriousness enough injury. If someone goes to the hospital, there's an automatic referral to the local animal control officer. When a dog is bit by another dog, it's not necessarily reported in the same way. But I do see a lot of dog on dog, and in that situation, we had one where one dog bit another dog, but my client owned 4 dogs, and the town came in and forced him to surrender all 4 dogs before I got involved. So now they put down all 4 dogs, and only one of them was behaving like a dog, and that's a case where we're suing the town because that just wasn't right to take my client's dogs. I mean, dogs are property, and there's due process where you have to have a hearing, you have to investigate, and make sound decisions when you're taking somebody's property like that.
So we've talked a lot about dogs, we've talked about owners, we've talked about dog parks, and I think the other thing that comes to mind is some of the other things that we could do, like dog training and putting dogs through, well, actually, it's the owner that needs to be going to the dog training situation. But do you participate in any of that at all? Absolutely.
And through the dog cases I've had, I've met some great trainers around the state. There's so many good ones. I joined the Association of Professional Dog Trainers, and not to become a trainer, but to see what their world is like. And so often I've learned people come to them after the fact, after their dog needs some retraining. And there's such great resources to reach out beforehand. Just like kids need to go to school, dogs need to go to school. And here, because when there's no test for how to be an owner, and we need to do a better job of educating ourselves. And so many resources that it's a shame not to take advantage of it.
I'm just delighted to have this knowledge because in my business, Dog Health News, we end up with so many conversations about people who have situations where their dog is barking or their dog is biting, and once again, I want to make sure that our audience knows what the right steps would be to just connect or even help someone.
So now let's talk about if there was an incident. right away, take as many pictures as you can and grab witnesses. We're going to need those people later on. There are over 100 factors to look at when there's a dog bite, and in each day I learn even more factors to find. We're talking about you should spay or neuter your dog. That's number one. Make sure that it's vaccinations and the license is up to date. Because if we have to defend the dog and defend the owner, we want to show that you've at least followed the other regulations that we have in place. Your dog needs to go to the vet. You need to keep your dog healthy, well exercised, and well fed. And I've had cases where the animal control officer will point to the fact that this dog is malnourished, or when's the last time they went to the vet? Look at these records. So they don't feel comfortable giving that dog to the owner, and they often think that the only alternative is to put the dog down. And there's a whole spectrum of things we can do between the animal control officer's decision and keeping the dog alive.
Yeah, funny that you would mention nutrition, you know, having a dog well fed and taken care of, because that does affect the dog's behavior, obviously.
Right.
And the environment that the dog is in, it has to affect his behavior. And that opens up doors for dangerous situations. Yeah.
There's a school of thought where there's dogs who are pets, and then there's dogs who are guests at a home or just a resident of the home. If you have a dog in your home, you want to socialize it with your family. You shouldn't be segregating it. And that's part of the healthy development of a dog, too, to be able to understand that he or she can be with people. And those interactions, you don't know the training that you're giving that dog when they're out with you, not at home. They need that. And you need to treat your dog like a member of the family if you're going to have it at home.
That's true. So many times, I know I see a lot of dogs, and people will immediately say, my dog's not good with people, or please don't pet my dog, or, you know, my dog's not having a great day today. Just, you know, nice of you to say hello, but see you later.
Don't you feel terrible for those owners? Because they're missing out on some of the great things that you can do with your dog, where they're always on guard, the person. They just can't enjoy themselves when they're walking the dog. But if they just got some additional training, this help for every age dog and every age pet owner.
Well, you have inspired me, Jeremy Cohen. And now that I have my Boston Dog Lawyers T-shirt, I hope everyone will notice me in the street when I'm wearing it. I really can't commend you enough, because it's a hard job.
Well, we're filling a need. And I wish there wasn't a need, but I'm happy to be on this side of it. Thank you for having me on. This was a great show that you have.
We want to also offer our audience and our viewers another opportunity to figure out how to get in touch with you. So just let them know.
Thank you. So it's our Facebook, it's our webpage. Contact us by phone. And through me, I can lead you to other resources too. You might not need my services, but I can set you up with trainers and behaviorists so that so you might not need my help down the road.
That is great, really.
Thank you.
Another fabulous opportunity to learn more. Thank you so much,
Appreciate
Jeremy.
the time. Thank you, Roberta.
And we'll get together, I'm sure. And I want to thank all of our viewers for watching Dog Health News. This is Roberta Chadis. We'll see you soon.